give a talk. He is multi-talented, has a background in graphic design, used to be involved in the publishing world in New York, and has gone on to create this wonderful career in stained glass and fused glass with a very graphic edge to it. So we're thrilled to have him here. He's been here all week, and some of our own staff have been in the workshop all week, and guests and people from the region. They've been producing some really wonderful stuff. But I will turn this over to Joseph, and we're excited to hear what he has to share.
Can everybody hear me without the microphone?
Sorry.
Okay, so obviously I'm Joseph, and I have a bunch of images and talk about my background, glass art, some residencies, and marketing. So these are like all my favorite lectures that I often give students, but it's like a snippet of all of them, because if I didn't do that, we'd be doing it for 5 hours. And then I'm going to show you like how to light and frame your stained glass pieces. But I want to say what a pleasure it was to be here, and my students just rocked the house. They were productive and experimental, and did really, really fine work. And I actually got to experiment with some things too that I never did in my life.
Okay.
And we had a great assistant, Carla. Who's it back? Let's get her assistant. And I'm just gonna relax and see. So my background. These are two of my most influential teachers. On the left is Milton Glaser. You might have known him. He did the I Love New York theme, and a lot of posters with Dylan on the bottom. And Paula Scher, who is she's still a really great graphic designer at Pentagram. And these are some posters that she did, which I totally lucked out. I was my last year in college at SBA in New York, and Paula was in first year teaching a portfolio class. And we didn't know who was going to come in, and she showed up, and she's a working professional, and we knew her, and it was like everyone was very excited. So a really good influence. So I did 4 years there, and then I got involved in publishing, book publishing, advertising, and then settled into being an art director at these 3 magazines on the bottom. You might have heard of People. We did many really important things like Best and Worst Dressed, things that are really important in society. The Sexiest Man, and I'm really not into Hollywood or LA or anything like that. So they would mention certain stars, and I had to Google that person because I don't know them. But I got an education, and GQ, I had to get a whole new wardrobe for that. And then food housekeeping, which was great because they had a food kitchen and got to eat all this great food. But the main thing with all those jobs, you had to design on deadline. So you had to get the issue out on time, and if you didn't, you would be. I totally enjoyed it, and we did a lot of really fun designs. While I was at Good Housekeeping, I took a bunch of classes at Urban Glass in Brooklyn. I took 5 in a row. And then I basically locked myself in my studio because I'm like, I really want to use the things I learned in college, like silk screening and airbrushing, but do it on glass. Because back then I didn't see anybody else doing it. They were doing it the traditional way of that like medieval artists were doing. So I did that, and I'll show you some of my glass art, but I never expected to be a teacher, and the instructor at Urban Glass doing the stained glass broke her foot, and they called me in last minute to take over, and I went in, and I really enjoyed it, and then I had Urban Glass on my resume. Oh, where else did I propose to teach? And the class got more and more elaborate as I taught them. So I'm going to just show a few pieces from my students while showing this lecture. So these are some pieces that we did in class with silk screening and airbrushing. So it's not all about me. So one of the larger pieces I've done was for the MTA, Metro North Railroad. It's a stop along the Hudson, and basically they chose 5 artists to do proposals, and they liked my designs the best. And it is faceted glass. There's a close-up of the center panel. It's an inch thick glass, so we had to hire a company to do it. I can't thick glass. And but I did the design, and I also did some other painting on it. We used a Willing Hauser to do that, and it is a permanent. It's basically an outdoor piece. And the nice thing, this is the town that my parents grew up in, so I knew like a lot of people there still. My cousins always go and visit them. So these are the panels from left to right. And it's basically to for the commuters to see every day. Going to work and coming home. Another piece that was one that I really enjoyed doing was about Isaac Hayes. He had a car collection back in the 70s of great music. So this was for a show up in Harlem, and I did a few pieces with that image, and the Stax Museum in Memphis bought a piece, and it's part of their permanent collection. And this is a piece that they bought, a lot of silk screening and a lot of pieces of glass, and this is another version of that piece in my old studio. So the process, I always start out with little sketches. This is a sketch like maybe 2 inches tall. We call it a thumbnail sketch. And I do a bunch of those, and then I decide if I like it or not, and then I redraw it on the computer, and then I can print it out, and all the lines are nice and straight. You're letting the computer do all that for you. I use a program called InDesign that we use in the publishing industry. And for this project, I wanted to have like a diver in the middle of this piece, but I could only find reference photos and materials online that showed like half of the body like diving into a pool. So for my artwork, I had to go to my gym and approach a total stranger and say, I'm a glass artist and I need a model for my diving piece. Would you be interested? It took me like 4 weeks to approach this one guy, and he turned to me and he paused and he said, you know, my father's an artist, I'd be glad to help. So it worked out. This is the interview. And he basically came over and did this position in Photoshop. I flipped it and pointed his toes so it looks like he was diving. The image on the left is the design with the only artwork that I found, which is like half the body. So there is a silk screen with some airbrushing on it, and it's a large piece, and the frame actually steps back, and there's the final piece. I had 2 interns helping me make this because there was a lot of painting, and Here's a close-up. There's another close-up. And there it is in my client's bathroom. A perfect place for a piece called a dive. So another piece, we were doing some slumping in class, and this was a process where you made the mold, and you put this glass over it and melted it right into the mold, and there were like 3 babies. And then I put them in a white box and lit them from behind. There it is from the side. Had a really nice glow to it. And The Simpsons. So in the 80s, there was a housing crisis, and I wanted to do a piece based on how Americans were suffering from that situation. And I was like, who should go on the bus? McDonald, Barack Obama, and I was like, who better represents America than Bart Lisa Simpson? So I basically killed them, or they're being killed, and did this huge piece. It's almost the size of this tabletop. And my frame maker came over to deliver the frame for it, and he was the first person to see it in person, and he turned to me and said, "You're going straight to hell." And I was like, that's a great response. I'm going to do 6 more. So I did that. There's a close-up. I don't feel a little mad.
So you wound up in Tucson instead. You wound up in Tucson instead.
Right, yeah. And here's another piece. So the very first piece I had a show in Brooklyn, and they did a little article about it in a local paper, and then I got a call from the Simpsons writers in LA, and I was just like, okay. He said he's going to visit New York and wants to do a studio visit. And I was like, either he's going to arrest me or buy my artwork. And he bought my artwork. And it was hanging in the offices. They actually write The Simpsons. And in about 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to visit there to replace the lights. And they say I might be able to sit in on a weekend. Really fun. And his coworker bought this piece. So The Simpsons. This is another older piece based on a Aesop fable about 2 goats. They're really great stories to base your work on, and you don't have to make anything up yourself. It's like there's great imagery in those Aesop fables. There's a close-up. And this was a very early work. I didn't do any airbrushing, all hand painted. So Art Crumb, you might know, he did the Mad Comics and a lot of the covers for the Mad Comics. And I loved his work. So I was like, I want to use some of his imagery, but put it in a stained glass setting. He's still alive, so I asked for permission, not like The Simpsons. And I wrote him and did a lot of designs digitally before I cut it in class. And I sent them to him, and I was like, is it okay if I use these? Do I have your permission? And he's 70, probably 80 years old now. He wrote back the next day, and he said, use them, I love your work, and go out and make a lot of money. And I'm like, great, I'll try to do that. And the problem after that was, he does cross-hatching on paper with a pen really, really fast. And I was there with a paintbrush trying to recreate it. So it took a lot longer than I expected. But I love his figures. They're like 70s icons. And when I had another show with Early Glass, people recognized that it was Art Crumb. Another piece, just being in New York, this is called Dakota Under Glass. So all done digitally with photographs, and I made silk screens of 3 different colors. So the black is one silk screen, the ribbons and the border, the yellow is another silk screen, and then the checkerboard on the bottom is another subscreen. So all digital and just doing a series like printing on a t-shirt. And a lot of New Yorkers love that piece. What's that? That one is pretty small. It's maybe like 20 inches tall. And I love Alice in Wonderland. So this is like Alice in Wonderland as if she's living now. So she has a pack of cigarettes in her pocket, and she's walking like 4 white rabbits. And the white rabbits are texting. So it's like things that are happening now. Okay, so that's my artwork. Now we'll talk about some art residencies. But first, a couple of pictures of my students' work. More. We had a flying squirrel image for social media class, which was very popular. Okay, what are art residencies, and what do the artists get, and what do the hosts get? Artists, it's a place to work, do research, away from home. You can work in a new space and have more time to make your work because you don't really have to make meals and stuff. You get to meet and work with other artists. I always offer a permanent installation, and sometimes there's exhibitions along with the residency. You make a lot of contacts, and you learn about other cultures. And the people that are running it, they introduce new artists to each other and to the community. They introduce new ideas and techniques. A lot of times I teach a class during the residency. They support artists. They often get grants to run these programs. And they're all different parts of their career that they're supporting artists. And they often ask for a piece of artwork to be left behind for the host to show up. So that's like a permanent exhibition or permanent art that's left in all these countries where I've been. Has anybody here been on an art residency? Yeah. Great. So these are I think it's 15 now that I've been on. Scotland was the very first one. So I'm going to show you a few of these, but not all of them. But they just were great because, like, the Scotland one was for glass artists, and the Australian one. But the Brazil one, I was the first glass artist there. So the people were just like they liked my idea, and I was doing a class with the locals. So it's just like a great introduction to a technique that they never really knew about. So I like when that happens because it's brand new for everybody. And so I'll show you a few pictures, but first, like, what do they offer? Some of them pay for your travel. Most of them give you housing. The good ones have really good food and they cook for you. They always have equipment, like 80% of them. Sometimes they pay you to be there, and they all give you a workspace. And the one coming up at the very bottom in Venice, they actually give you a gallery space. So that's going to be nice. Of course, the ones that offer all of these points, more people apply to because it's a lot more comfortable and they're supporting the arts. You don't have to pay for your travel or your housing. And any questions along the way, just raise your hand, okay? So the very first one was in Northland's creative class. It was only for kiln forming. This was around the corner. This was the workspace. There were more sheep in town than people. And these are two of the three fellow artists. And two of them actually were from Australia, so they told me about the next residency that I applied for. And some things happen that you expect and some things that you don't. Like feeding the orphan lamb. Like, I never expected to do that in my life. And they were really hungry. So they sort of attacked us and we had bottles. And a very, very nice experience. So my proposal was to choose 6 people in town, interview them, take their photos, and do a stained glass piece based on them. So this is Dave the Butcher. He cuts up those little orphan lambs. He wears a white hat all the time. And he's super friendly. And he has the only butcher shop in town. So he was my first choice. So I went, interviewed him, took a bunch of photos, and made this piece based on him and the instruments in his shop. If you guys know Flash Class, I use a lot of Flash Class in this piece. And it was nice because it was like 2 buildings away, and his kids would stop in while I was painting this. And one of them was like, give him more wrinkles. He needs some more wrinkles. And while I was at that residency, there was the courtyard, and this is the men's room behind it. So I proposed to do a permanent installation there. And here it is. So it's basically almost naked man, but it's all sandblasted, the lettering. So that took me like 3 days to cut out all those letters, and then 10 minutes to sandblast it. So if you're in Scotland at Northlands Glass, you have permission to go in the men's. There's a close-up of all the cutting. And it was a perfect place, like sun coming through. The next one was in Sydney, and while I was in Australia, I applied to do a week-long residency at 2 other locations, and it worked out really well, so I got to travel. Their facility, their school used to be a mental institution, but really beautiful buildings, but there was definitely ghosts on the property, and everybody knew about them. And I was housed there alone at night in the building that they used to do the bombings in. They told me that after So it was great during the day, but at night I got spooked out a lot. And you do what you do in the movies. You lock the doors, you turn on the TV and the radio, and it's just like try to forget about it. But it was a really great experience. It was sort of like, I like ghosts. Another building there. After that, another totally different residency in India. And before I got there, I approached these glass artists. It was really hard to find glass artists in Delhi. So I, through Instagram and Facebook, I found these 3 ladies. They didn't know each other at all. The one on the left, it used to be a soap opera star, so everybody in town knew her. The one in the middle, her and her husband had a business of 50 employees that made gifts, and some of them were glass. And the one on the right was a independent glass artist. So I brought them in, I gave them a free 2-day class, and they got to know each other. And then we had like this posse that would go out to museums and restaurants, and I really had a good time with them. So it was a really good step to contact them before I actually got to the residency. While I was there, I asked the local art college to stop by, and I did a lecture for them, and I also did a demo. They have kilns for pottery, but they never saw anything done on glass. So they were really excited to see that. And you can see like everybody's sweating. It was like the hottest residency ever. But they really enjoyed it, and they really didn't have glass in their program, but I'm hoping it influenced some of the students to work with glass in the future. And the piece I did for that residency, basically I offered to do a window, and we'll choose the window when I get there. This one, they chose a window like the size of the top of this table. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I brought some glass with me, but we bought a lot of clear glass. And it was a formal garden on the other side, so I didn't want to block the view. So this is the piece, and there's 3 museums on the property, and one of them is ceramic, and they have these ceramic horses that are 6 feet tall. Amazing to see them. So that was the theme of the piece. And there's an angle shot. And those 3 ladies helped me paint all these horses by hand. So it really was worth it to have other people in the studio helping me out. And each one is a little different. Back to New York, the Museum of Art and Design. They have an open studio program. It's great. It's for 3 months, but it's only 1 day a week. So you work in the studio there, you have people in and out talking to you. So you have to work and talk at the same time. A lot of visitors, I actually printed up like postcards, and I printed 1,000 of them, and I handed them all out within those 3 months. So international visitors and a lot of New Yorkers. So that was enjoyable, and they pay you to be there. And one that was not as organized as I would like. It was the first time they were doing it, and it was in Italy. I'm Italian, so I'm not allowed to complain. I knew that it wasn't going to be good from the start, but I intentionally showed up 2 days late. The people that showed up on time, there was no electricity, they couldn't find a place to eat dinner, and their roofs of the studios were leaking. Oh, God. And no internet. So I showed up 2 days late, and it was all fixed. This was good. And it was this hilltop medieval village. Wow. That's the castle on the top. Gorgeous, old stone buildings and bridges, and only half populated. So they brought artists in to make it a little more lively. That was my studio across from the only bar in town. So we had a lot of drunk Italians in there. A parade just happened, and I was the only one on the side, like, waving. It was bizarre, but everybody else was in the parade. So the project I proposed and did there was Italian, American actors and actresses. That's Sophia Loren. Because they didn't have a kiln, I printed out images on archival paper and sandwiched that in between glass, and then could hang them up. And I did maybe like 15 of them, sold a bunch. The other ones I could put in my luggage and bring home easily. That's one thing you really have to think about when you're doing an art residency. Glass is heavy. While I was there, the gentleman that owns the castle gave me a commission, and I did Lord Bart in Monasteracci, which is the name of the town. So there's Bart Simpson walking through town. And obviously, he liked it. Another one after that I was at twice was in Brazil. Basically outside of Salvador, Brazil, which is the 3rd largest city. You take a boat for like half an hour, and then a little van for 45 minutes, and you're with all the like 5 other art residents. And then you go down this dirt road, and everyone got a little nervous at that point. Where are they taking us? And then we go through the gates, and it's paradise. Wow. If you ever get to be there, apply for it. They have housing, they cook for you. There's peacocks and turtles and a private beach. Wow. And it's 2 months long, in the middle of a New York City winter. So I'm like, this is great. So, and really nice people. My proposal was to do a class for the locals in beginner stained glass. So we found a glass studio in town where I did the class for the men. And then at the studio we did a class for the women. And this woman, Carmen, brought in feathers, and we made little frames for the feathers, and she started selling them and started the business. And that was like the best results of a art residency. The guys were a little more unorganized because their sons would come in and interrupt the class, and they gave me 2 translators, but they really didn't speak English that well.
Oh, no.
Thank God one of the students spoke English. And we just did some small panels, but we had a really good time. Anybody who walked in the studio is like, you're going to learn either how to cut glass or cover film. So I'm sure, I hope that people are still doing that. And my project there for the first visit was to do some stained glass in some of the windows. So they didn't have a kiln, so all the like cut paper that you see, all the black stripes, that is black cut paper. And it doesn't get direct sunlight, so it's not gonna fade. And that was great, I did one, and they were like, okay, let's show you another window. And it was great because it was in the dining hall, so everybody saw it for every meal. And then, like 6 years later, when I left the first time, I said, if you ever want me back, this has been great. And they sent me this picture of this church, and they said, it's a local church, and they want to stay by Soho. And I looked at that picture, and it was like, it looks like the window is maybe like 2 or 3 feet. That window is 6 feet tall. It's huge. The doorway is huge. So I did a design. The priest approved it, but they have no funding at all. So to afford making the frame and buying the glass for it, I contacted all my past friends and families and people that have bought my work, and I wrote them all a handwritten letter asking for funding. And they come through with exactly the amount of money that I needed.
Wow.
I went frame maker in Brooklyn, put the frame together. It came apart into 13 pieces, and it fit into a box that was exactly the size for check-in luggage, and it was exactly the right weight. I don't believe in Jesus, but I believe in you now. So it came apart, and I got to the studio there and put it back together. The theme was Return of Our Lady of Mercy, because that little statue you see on the right was stolen from the church. So they had a picture of it, so I put that in the middle of the piece to signify the return of Mary. So I got there, I put it together, soldered it all, got the frame together, and we were waiting for this scaffolding to be built in front of the church, which was really slow because there was only one scaffolding in town. So they had to take it down, bring it there, and rebuild it, and that happened the last week that I was there. So I was just like hanging out, waiting, like I had everything ready. Finally, the scaffolding was up, and we lifted up the frame because it would have been too heavy with the glass in it. And then my 2 assistants and I climbed up the scaffolding, which was extremely wobbly, but I was like, oh, it's a good place to die, right? Right in front of the church. And one of my assistants looked at it and he was like, this is the closest I've ever been to Mary in my life. He was just like so happy to help me out with it. This is a screwing it onto the wall of the church, and we had LED lights behind it that lit up automatically at 7 o'clock in the evening. So there it is finished
Wow.
with the scaffolding down. And that was like 2 days before the end of the residency. So it was really perfect timing. And they invited me to come back, and they were going to have a little ceremony in front of the church to commemorate the new stained glass piece. So I show up, and there's these four old ladies sitting across from the church. I was like, oh, 4 people came out for my inauguration of the stained glass piece. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's quiet. And then the marching band came with the whole town behind me. They totally surprised me. They were not the best band, but they had energy. And the stained glass lit up at 7 o'clock. They played Happy Birthday to it because it was its birthday. And they brought out the food and the cameras and the news crew. It was a total surprise, and it went out really, really well. So that's why I like that residency the best. So,
Better.
what's that?
You could imagine better.
I know.
That's great.
So advice if you want to do art residency, be clear why you want to do it, what's the most exciting experience, how much time do you have, where would you like to visit, if you have roots in that country, that always helps. Do you want to continue your work or start something new? And in class, I ask my students to do their 5-year plan, where they want to be professionally in 5 years. So that should fit where you want to be professionally in 5 years. The application, you can look at other artists that have done art residencies in class and see where they did it. I always offer a permanent installation. I always involve the community. And writing, be clear, a lot of people reading these don't know anything about glass. So you have to speak to them as if they're brand new and they don't know what a kiln is or what a firing schedule, and follow the directions exactly. And here's some websites on the right. If you want me to email this PDF to you, I can, so you can review it in the comfort of your home. I'll show you my email address later. So that is art residencies, and we're going to talk about marketing now. So it's sort of dealing with marketing. So when I did that show at Urban Glass with The Simpsons, they published it in the Brooklyn Eagle, which is a tiny little newspaper, but they had some images of it. And the next day, the Daily Telegraph in London called me up, and they're like, we saw that online, we want to be the artist of the day in all our syndicated newspapers around the world. I was like, thank God for the Brooklyn Eagle. So that happened. And
Wow.
also, I had some work up in a restaurant in New York. There were huge works, there were 7 of them. And they decided to film an episode of Law and Order, which is my favorite show, by the way. And they actually paid me to have images of my artwork in the show. And it's a good show. Yeah. So it's called Learning Curve is the title of it. And just by luck and good timing, that happened. So it wasn't like direct marketing that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna put my work in this restaurant and Law and Order is gonna be there. No, it just happened. Some more work in my students. We had a space cat, helmet on it, a crow, and of course Medusa. So back to marketing. People just often would see images on our website and be like, this fits in with an article we're writing. And sometimes I pay and sometimes I just use it, but they always put my address for my website. So what is marketing? There's all different ways of doing it. It's basically spreading the word about your artwork through people that you know, email lists, podcasts, TV, radio. There's so many different ways of doing it. But if you're interested in doing that for your own work, I say choose two of these and pursue them. It might be a local newspaper or magazine. It might be through people that you know or just online. Don't choose them all because you'll have no time to make your artwork. So the best sales I've had in the past, friends and neighbors. These are some of my neighbors in France. Contacts of people that I've worked with. Contacts, oh, there's two N's in contacts now, while teaching. Fellow artists, past collectors and their friends and family, and then exhibitions. And it could be that you want to spread the word about your art directly, like you're in the show and you want to get that in the newspaper, or about techniques or upcoming classes or exhibitions. So it doesn't have to be just directly about your artwork. And you should have a modest attitude. Just like this artist. So everything I say tonight, feel free to do the exact opposite. Because that what makes art stand out, right? Like space, cats, and Medusa. Who knows? So yeah, feel free. And that's something we learned in college, like advertising. Surprise them to something totally unexpected. And you'll get the attention of people that you know. But before you start marketing, challenge yourself with your work. Experiment with all different classes and techniques until you find that one that you really like best. And maybe do your work in a series because people like to see artwork that is more like concentrated and serious in a series. These are early works I did even before I started painting on walls. And I was like, I don't want to cut 50 pieces anymore. I want to paint. Before you start marketing, consider getting scholarships, like American Glass Guild, if you're part of that. They are always giving away scholarships for you to take classes. And other societies that support glass artists. And you make a lot of connections, they have events, and oftentimes they will support you for taking classes. So just a bunch of tips that I've learned over the years. Private classes, I had a client that bought a bunch of my artwork and he wanted to learn Photoshop. And he didn't want to take a 12-week class somewhere. So he hired me to come in and do like a 4-day class with him, just telling them the tools that he should use. So he didn't have to go to class and learn the 50 million tools in Photoshop. I came over and taught him that way. And he was able to like make his wife look younger in photographs and change the color of photographs. And it was basically something that I do when I want to learn a certain technique. I don't take a 12-week class. If I want to learn one specific thing, I'll find an artist and approach them and do a private class. So consider that. I always have, for my larger work, I do a page with a description of the artwork because you should have a listing of all the artwork that you made that is considerably large. So it's like an inventory of your artwork. So you have your masthead, photos, the size and the title, a little description of like why you made it, and then the right column is like a mini resume. So if you're applying for a show, you could just send them this page. If you want to be teaching somewhere and they want images of your artwork, you send them this page. So you don't have to go on your computer and open up 12 million files to find this information. I always name my images with my name in it, because if that image is sent to somebody else, from the person that I sent it to, they'll know who made it. And also, if it's online anywhere and someone does a Google search, they'll see your images. And I always have a file to trash on my screen. So a lot of times you make a PDF or a file and you don't want to keep it till the end of time. So I put it in that file, and then once a month I go through it and do that. It just keeps your computer running smoothly and have less to look at. If you are interested in having a bulk email sending service, the really good one is Brevo, and you can design an email, have an email list. You can send it to 300 people a day, and then they start charging you, but then you can send it to 300 people the next day. And it's really easy to design and promote whatever you want to promote in the artwork. So I try to do that like once a month, and I always do it with the classes I teach. So, how to expand your audience and clients? The steps that I took to try to get articles in a glass magazine were these, because I wanted to expose my glass work to people that actually read about glass, and so I knew they had that interest to start out with. So, found my audience, I asked which magazines they read, and one of them was the Urban Glass magazine. So I contacted the editor and I asked, like, are you the right person to send an article proposal to? They might have been fired, there might be somebody else that's taking that position, so you don't want to send all that information to somebody that you don't know is working that position. So they respond, they say yes on the person to read article submissions. You send a short explanation of what you want to propose, an article with a photo. And if they like it, then you have a phone discussion with them. You don't want to ask them like these 6 questions. It's easier to phone them and be like, who's going to write it? What's the work count? What's the schedule? How many photos? And then you have that in writing. I email that back to them and I say, do you agree for this? And they agree, and that's a contract. So you could always go back to that email and say, we agree to do this, and we're going to do it. Like the deadline is this day. So simple steps, you just have to find the right place that will fit and be interested in your artwork. Also, working with clients, you might be asked to make a commission with them. And there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years to include in an estimate. Description of the project, the design fee. Important, if you're designing something with sketches, I give them 4 initial designs, 4 sets of revisions, and then any revisions after that, I start charging by the hour. And they always make their decision right before that step. Because that's a bit more. List your supplies. If you're delivering it, don't forget that. Transportation, if you're like bringing it somewhere or a round trip. Installation if they want it. So, and sometimes you could put a range because they might not know exactly what they want. And also say this estimate is good for until a certain date. Okay, other things I've learned along the way. If you have somebody put your beautiful artwork in their apartment, have an after party. They'll have some wine, they'll invite their friends, and they'll have a good time, and then invite the artist, and you'll talk about your artwork, and you'll get somebody else interested in your artwork. It happens all the time. So, after party. if you're asked to be in an auction or fundraiser, it's great to get an invitation or a percentage of the sale. And if you go to any art opening to support your friends, I say don't talk to your friends the whole night. Go up to 3 complete strangers and with each one to say, what brought you here tonight? Start a conversation. They might be a collector, they might be an artist. And then after 3 people you have these talks with, then you're allowed to leave. If you get anything out of this lecture, meet 3 people rule. Yeah. Other things I've learned, sometimes if you're promoting an exhibition, always ask the people that are running it if you could do that. If you have a studio, post it on Google Maps or TripAdvisor, and get your artwork out of your studio. Do an exchange with someone that does videos, and they could do a video of your process. Do a bucket sale where all these extra glass that you have hanging around the studio that you're not going to sell, you sell a bucket for $25, and people come in, fill up the bucket with your artwork, also trash, and they're happy, and you're happy to get rid of all this glass work. Or a second sale. Or if you really don't like the work that you made, photograph it and then have a good time smashing it. Yeah, because you don't want that to be out there if it's not something you're particularly proud of. And it's glass, it's fun. And not all about myself, marketing for others. I've written articles about my favorite artists, and it's refreshing to expose people reading this magazine to art that I really liked over the years. So, sort of coming to the end, I wanted to show you where I'm living now for the last 2 years. This is our little town of Torquebo, south of Paris. The building on the top right are our house, and our studio is on the bottom right. And as soon as I moved in, I put some stained glass windows for the entrance. And we have a pony club. I don't have any pictures of ponies, but constantly there's ponies with little children walking through town. Like, what else could you ask for? There it is at night. Our studio. And here is some of the techniques that we were doing in class. So we had an airbrush, the same little pink one up there on the left. We were doing silk screening and penning with a Croclo pen and a paintbrush, and we did this whole goofy alphabet. The bottom right is a silk screen and a squeegee. In the middle is a piece that I've done, which is silk screen and fused and slumped. And it's called the eye candy bowl. Eye candy. And on the left is my other class that we do, which is painting with all these techniques, but on flat stained glass, and it's put into a frame and lit from behind. So that is the lecture. And if there's any questions about what I just talked about, we'll have a few minutes to do that. I know it's a lot to cover, but let's try to start with. So again, if you have questions afterwards, and especially my students, feel free to email me like 10 days